We're back with Harrowings Live with Hal Gill, your host, and we are at the William Jefferson Clinton Federal Building outside the Ronald Reagan Building and International Trade Center, turning down by the notifications from the EPA about how to do better for the environment, benefits of composting. There's lots of information to be had out here on the passing show. The United States Postal Service has an office there. Health benefits for postal employees are being advertised, and we got a mailbox. Collection time change. And remember that postmarking is now going to be when it hits the automated sorter. It's not going to be when you dropped it off. So be cautious on April 15th. So the passing show just brings you a little bit of who, what, when, and where. Here in Washington, D.C., we're over across from the Elephant and Castle on Pennsylvania Avenue, Northwest in Washington, D.C. And folks bivouacked along the benches, which is not uncommon by these federal buildings. This is the Benjamin Franklin Station. He was our first postmaster for the colonies, actually, before we were even independent. And the former post office across the street is now the Waldorf Astoria. It changed from being a Trump hotel, which it became in 2017-16, right as he became president and right as he went out of office. It was sold to the Waldorf Astoria, apparently, and ceased to being part of our collective. I'm going to stop in the median here for a moment or two because the light's about to change, I believe, for this oncoming traffic. On 12th Street, Northwest, you can look up at the Nordstrom Rack, which was a Barnes & Noble at one time. There's a new Barnes & Noble opening, and I'm down here, actually, because I was looking to see if I could get on the staff, because they are fully staffed, and I'll be having to check back regularly if I want to get a gig there. It's something I would be willing to do in my retirement and my running of the Harold B. Gill Foundation, which makes losses more than profit presently. I'm thinking about applying for some grants. I haven't done it yet, but I've got some irons in the fire in that direction. We're working with my coach on that in the last 2 sessions I've got with her. I don't know if that was a good investment or not. I sort of knocked my dust off, though, I suppose. And she gave me a lot of good suggestions, of which I would take a few. Taking suggestions is not something that most of us do easily. But it wasn't our own idea. And I guess that's the thing. We got to convince people it's our idea. You can't just push through things. We got to listen to the consensus. And silent treatment really isn't a consensus. It's just an indicator of the way people feel about the messenger, not the message. If you pick up what I'm laying down, you know what I'm talking about. I'm going through some of that lately. It's not easy, but I managed to recognize the fact that most people don't have much awareness of others. And a lot of awareness of themselves. They see things, and having a different point of view is not usually something they can really get into this. I felt very judged myself for having drawn attention to something that a group of us really ought to, I think, in my limited and distorted perspective, care about. I think we all ought to care about the environment, care about our actions, think about how we're doing and what's happening. And let's see who we got here so far. Vale, Mirrors joined, Wonder Seeker. John Marshall has joined. Hey, John. T.W. Lacrosse joined. If you'd like to join, and it says that my internet connection is unstable, so apologies there. I'm doing the best I can. Check out whether or not I'm being jammed. There seems to be something jamming at me. And, whoops, dang it. Sort of lost my visibility on some of you guys. I'm not sure I can actually add anybody. That's interesting. So I'm going to invite TW Lacrosse. They talk to me out here. Hey, there's your invitation to join TW Lacrosse if you wish. If you don't wish, that's fine. I'll notice it. I'll hold for about, I don't know, however long it takes for you to see the invitation. You might not even be logged in anymore. If anybody would like to join me on the walk, talk to me as I go, feel free. Going once, going twice. All you have to do is write the message. Also, I would like it if people would write how they are. Where they are is interesting. How they are is even more interesting. Why are you here? Is a question I posed to TW Lacrosse, who replied that they, whoever they are, is a witness. And I love that, see people, actually see other people. Okay. Yeah, hey, you joined. Or somebody joined.
Hey, it's Terry.
It's who?
It's TW.
TW. What's your name, really? Did you give me the real name there? Was it Terry?
Yeah, Terry.
Oh, good. Nice to meet you. Yes.
Kansas City, Missouri.
All right. Kansas City. Do you know Knuckleheads?
I do love the place. My band, my favorite band, mine and Stephen King's favorite band just played there. Rainmaker.
What's it called?
The Rainmakers just played there again.
Widowmakers?
Rainmakers.
Rainmakers. Okay, got it. Sorry, my audio is kind of like not working great. I'm going to turn you down a little bit. Maybe I can hear you better. It's a little distortion. Am I coming through okay?
Yeah, you're great. You're great. Maybe it may be mine. Let me.
That's cool.
Let me
It's
do
all right. It's good enough. I'm getting used to it. I'm starting to adjust my hearing, and I don't have the greatest hearing. If you know anything about me, you know I'm a fifer.
Okay.
And fife and drum is loud. And they didn't give us earplugs till I was around 15. I started doing it when I was 11. So, well, it was meant my hearing was shot from an early age. But I can hear good enough.
Yeah.
I just have to attend and, really listen. And I loved what you said. Let's talk a little bit about witnessing, being a witness of other people.
Yeah, I think that's you were talking about earlier about it got me to thinking about the depth of our reality, right? So a lot of people don't go deep into they're just really surface. It's almost they become almost what NPCs.
NPCs.
Yeah, and on what a non-player character.
Oh man, my internet's a little unstable. I think NPCs. Give me what that stands for again.
Non-player character.
That's that string.
Yeah, to play D&D. So so yeah, it's something from that.
You brought Rush back to mind. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
Exactly. So yeah, it's just it's been interesting. It's been an interesting topic.
Yeah. I bet I know why I'm having a little trouble right here. You see where I am?
Oh yeah.
Robert F. Kennedy Department of Justice building. So yeah, and there's the archives right across where our Declaration of Independence is and our U.S. Constitution is and all those wonderful things that our country is based on. I don't know, man. I like to document this point in history because I think it's really interesting, to say the least. So let's get back to witnessing people, non-player NPC, non-player. What? Oh, characters. Yeah, characters. Well, I love characters, and I think that I am a character. Quote around character, right? And I think a lot of people find me to be an acquired taste.
Exactly.
I'm just walking away from a conversation I was having with some people face to face about some matters of principle. And I've been trying to get this across to people, gently since September, and getting mostly, with one exception, the silent treatment in return from like 80 other people. And it's like, it's a little uncomfortable to, what I'm suggesting is a group of us who are coming together regularly for the purposes of recovery. Look at our shadow. We really love us. But a person coming into our midst might find our reception a bit chilly or even no reception whatsoever. And it's supposed to be a life-saving fellowship of people, who have these great principles we live by and practice in all our affairs. And I'm like calling it out saying, hey, wow, we love us so much. We celebrate us so much. We're not seeing other people. We're not seeing those who are coming into our midst and going right back out again. Right? Why is that? Probably because we're self-centered, right? We're not other-centered. And what I picked up from your message was, you're here, because the question was, why are you here? Just really open-ended. And your answer was, I'm going to let you speak for yourself.
I consider myself a witness because what I'm doing is I'm moving through life. I'm moving through the stream of the that we have. And as I'm connecting with others, I'm noticing and seeing things that maybe perhaps they don't see. And I've spent my entire life trying to make sure that I see the things that others don't.
Lovely.
I notice the way light falls. But I've picked up over the years, and
Oh, I lost you. I can't hear you now. Can you hear me?
yeah, I could barely hear you.
Okay, you can barely hear me. So look at where it's not so noisy. But I'm focused on this tree across the way because you know what that tree's called?
No.
It's called the witness elm, ironically. And it's been there since like 1850. It's got some wounds, as you can probably see.
Yeah.
Limbs have been trimmed off. The Dutch elm disease, is pretty much taking care of a lot of elms, but this one's still living. And it's been there witnessing everything that's come up and down Constitution Avenue forever.
Wow.
Well, 1850. That's a long time in our country, anyway. In other countries, not so long. We got other people here, too, so I hope that they will feel free to write texts. Lee Penman has joined. He's in Manhattan, I think. Alexi Seitz says, some say they are all part of you, people. In lucid dreaming, they're called dream characters. Yeah, and they're all part of us when we're dreaming them. That's right. John Marshall is here, Wonder Seeker, Veil and Mirror. Okay, so we got a little tribe of people scattered around the world. You're in Kansas City. We talked a little bit about Knuckleheads briefly. And Rainmakers was there recently. Is it Stephen King's favorite band?
That is Stephen King's favorite band. He mentions them in The Stand.
The Stand. All right.
Yeah, they retired a few years ago, but they did a charity event, and it was sold out before anybody could even knew that there were tickets available.
Wow, that's fantastic. I love that music and people bringing people together, and for charity at that. I've been involved in some of those things in the past. And I say Knuckleheads I know only because Samantha Fish cut her teeth there.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
Samantha?
Yeah.
And she was in the Healers, speaking of charity, with guy from Wet Willie. What's his name?
Oh,
Monica Timmy Hall.
Yep.
Okay. And the kids from Trampled Underfoot were drums and bass for that, too. I forget their names, but you probably know them.
Not right offhand.
The girl bassist and the drummer has now passed away, her brother, and they were in Trampled Underfoot together. And it would come back to me eventually, up out of the files, up out of the pleroma, I like to say.
Yeah.
And you see these folks skating. The ice skating rink will be done pretty soon, I guess, because this is Ukrainian Christmas or Orthodox Christmas. But there's some folks out here getting a few more turns before the skating rink folds for the season. Don't know exactly when that'll be.
Due to the weather.
Yeah, here during Christmas here, like lots of skaters to watch. And I think skating is kind of a good metaphor for what a lot of us are doing in order to get through the experience of being human. Now I'm focused on the Hirshhorn Modern Art Museum across the way. Do you know Washington, D.C. well?
Not very well. I was there about 2 years ago.
All right. Well, next time you're in town, look me up. I'm about 2 blocks north of DuPont Circle.
Oh, okay. I know that.
Yeah, right where Florida and Connecticut Avenues cross. F Street comes off there and goes up over the hill by Mitchell Park, come very close to the intersection of Florida and Connecticut and 21st and S on S. And I live in a building that was built about 1904, and I occupy the English basement level on the front side.
Oh, wow.
It's on a slope, so the alley behind us is actually above my ceiling grade. But it's never taken on water since 1904, they could tell on inspection.
Wow.
So I'm happy about that. And we bought it about 15 years ago, kind of on a whim. I didn't expect my wife to go for it like she did, but she did. And I've been hunkered down in what I call the bunker ever since. I was calling myself the bunker philosopher for a while because I didn't know what to classify my Substack as. So it was philosophy and humor. I don't know how funny it is, but because a lot of times I'm not feeling like what we're doing here is funny. It is, it's all in how you look at it.
Ironically, right? No, that's
you have to have a sense of it. Yeah. Go ahead. You're saying?
Oh, I was just saying ironically, because ironically is a sense of humor as well. It's just it's on the very low end.
Yeah, and absurdity.
Absurdity.
I think is a great deal of it. The real trauma I find in my world these days is just knowing and having an active awareness of just how effed up the situation is with our branches of government, supposedly there for checks and balances. But due to the fact that choices have been made by our government, allowed by the people who basically have, we're representative government. So we have, what is the word I'm looking for? We have delegated the decision making to our delegates. Peace, fine. But they're bought. They have to work from the time they come into office, something like 60% of their time fundraising for the next run.
Correct.
They only have like 30% of their time to dedicate to the rest of their lives, of which a fragment is dedicated to their voters, people who they technically serve. And it's just criminal, I think, that we've allowed that to happen. And when I look at those things, I don't point a finger outward. I look at me.
Right.
I am responsible. So I try to remind other people. My wife tells me that she feels judged every time I say, every cent spent is a vote, which is one of my mantras. Because really, we're homo economicus. We're driving this thing by choices we make in terms of where we put our money. Correct. To keep it out of the Defense Department, I gave money, for instance, a failed chunk of change, to this organization here called the National Gallery of Art. I think art, literature, and music are what's going to save our species.
It does every time. It brought us out of a couple of wars that we've already experienced.
I think one of the things we're really going to have to do is to own it as a species, as a primate species that's not very good for other species.
Right.
And we ought to think more about those squirrels out there. Although they're doing pretty good, actually.
Yeah. If you knew me, I'm not a fan of squirrels. But
so that's okay.
Yeah,
I'm an albino.
I'm a fan of life. They're allowed to live. I'm not saying that, but I'm not a fan of squirrels. Just as an old farmer.
I've seen this guy before. I'm going to go over and get a closer look at him. We've got an albino squirrel. Whoop. Oh, no. This person was not looking at where they were going. I was about to walk behind them, and they almost hit me. It's all right. I saw you coming. I know. Anyhow, I almost got clipped. That can happen. Actually, I was walking the other day doing the passing show, and I caught my foot on the curb, and I got the whole thing on tape. Gotta watch myself.
I'm gonna interject real quick. So one of the interesting things that a friend of mine talked about the other day is that he felt like that our government was like a game of Monopoly, right? But that the person in that the folks who've agreed to play the game don't realize that the banker is changing the rules as they go, right? And it's always to their advantage. It's always tilted toward their favor, and you cannot win a game that way. And so we all know what happens when a game of Monopoly reaches a point. You just have to stop it.
Yep, somebody's going to upset the board.
Yeah, exactly.
And that'll be that, particularly if it's unfair. If you're not playing by the rules that you think you're playing by, somebody's actually gaming the system.
Correct.
We've watched that happen since at least I was a child. And when they thought that things would go differently than they'd like them to go, you suddenly find people just X'd off the list. I don't know. There are lots of people are thinking, okay, Sirhan was operating alone. John, what was the guy's name? Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh, right.
Operating alone. Not in any way was anybody. And, they released all those papers fairly recently, and I just haven't heard jack. I haven't actually done my homework. I need to do my homework. I need to dig in and actually pay attention more than just looking at the headlines and saying, oh, shiny.
Yeah, exactly. The problem is Bannon even said we won't have to worry about any buckshot approach to the news because we don't have bandwidth to cover every little thing that's coming through. So when they released all of that, there were a lot of other news-worthy events that were occurring. It's exactly like what's happening with oh my God, now I'm having to think about it. Nevada, what's her name? Karen Boyd. I can't think of her last name. Anyway, she's the third in line of the interior department, and her husband agreed to sell their water rights for approximately like $3.5 million to a mining company, but only there was a condition in the contract that only on the condition that the mining company gets permission from the interior to do it. And so she's sitting third in line. Of course, she approved it. That was in the last Trump. But what happens when that news broke that day? He invaded Venezuela. So that's all everybody's is talking about. So she may actually with it.
She may actually what?
Get away with it. I mean, we're not talking more, right?
Right. Very likely. I'm glad you mentioned it. Now people can go out and look it up. Maybe somebody out here can take some actions. And will be transcripted, so the word is out.
Yeah.
The radius of my reach is not great. That's why I try to advocate to people to amplify other people's signals. Right. Through the noise of cyberspace, right? Because if we do that, if we take the time to actually hit restack or make a note, like I made a note of your comment about being a witness, other people are going to pick up on that. And maybe they'll think, I ought to be a witness too. I ought to be not just a witness. I should not be a non-playing character. In fact, but into my existence, I'm playing. I have a part in this.
Exactly.
And I am responsible for this woman in Nevada doing what she's doing. And I hope you'll post about it. Write a little article about it. Let us see it. Let us bring attention to it. And I see people doing that here and there. I see different voices being suppressed too. I don't know if you recognize suppression when you see it.
I do.
Oh my God. It was so rife in 2016, for instance.
Right.
Have you ever seen Michael Moore's film Fahrenheit 11/9?
Yes. Very nice. Yeah, that very intense.
And one of the most intense things, I think, in the whole thing, besides him blaming Gwen Stefani for Trump's first administration. You remember that part?
I
Basically, she had gotten higher ratings for American Idol and The Apprentice. And that the coming down the escalator thing and his speech about the Mexicans that got him fired from NBC.
That's right.
Was actually trying to run up his ratings higher. And then he hadn't really intended to actually run, but he had already booked a couple of events to try to spin up his ratings. But now he was fired by NBC and he had the places booked, so why not? And we saw the reactions of the crowds.
Exactly.
It was like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
And all that time I was saying, do not point the camera at him. Point the camera.
Exactly.
But they couldn't look away.
Yeah.
Such a train wreck.
And then it became ego driven.
And today, the news was in the Washington Post, run by my good neighbor, Jeff Bezos, who lives right over the hill. He bought a double mansion up there from my house.
Nice.
Anyway, he hasn't invited me over yet, which I'm still a little miffed about. Anyhow, I'm not expecting it.
Did you bring a welcome to the community basket? Maybe.
No, but I did go by there one time and saw that there were a bunch of Amazon packages on the steps, and I thought that was funny. He got at the building. It used to be the Textile Museum, and they moved to George Washington University to a new building. And so the building was vacant, and he bought it, and then he put 25 bathrooms in the thing. It's not that big.
Wow.
But 25 bathrooms. That's the only thing that really stands out. But in the Washington Post today was Bela Fleck. Bela Fleck and the Flecktones has dropped 3 shows at the Kennedy Center, which I'm still going to call it.
Right.
That with the National Symphony Orchestra. Because, Donald J. Trump decided he had to have his name on the Kennedy Center as well as taking over his board chair and replacing the board with his cronies. I mean,
yeah.
Where are the limits? I mean, he's renamed the International Center for Peace or Peace, whatever they call it down. I might walk down there later. I'm going to run out of power eventually. But anyway, this International Peace Center, he's renamed the Trump Peace Center.
Nice.
And it's like, where does this stop? What are the limits? I just seem just crashing through them. And it's like, do we really care? As it appears not, because I went down to the White House yesterday. I heard they were going to surround the White House with billboards. When I went by there, nothing happening.
Yeah.
Nobody's out protesting this stuff. And it's like, I guess we don't care. I guess basically we're okay with it. And that we are getting what we deserve in that case. Go ahead.
That becomes the message, right? But I think a lot of times people just feel powerless.
They do. And it's not true. People have the power. We have abrogated our responsibility to exercise our power. We've delegated it.
That's it.
And we pretend that we don't have it. Where if we were to do a general strike, we could bring this place to a halt.
Exactly.
But people are not willing to do a general strike. It might inconvenience them.
Correct.
I think we're not willing to give up our comfort. And therefore, those who would, give away their liberty for a little comfort deserve neither, according to Benjamin Franklin. I'm riffing off of a Benjamin Franklin quotation. I'm butchering it, but it's...
No, that's one of my favorite quotes because it's true. what happens is it's not only that we are in a comfortable situation, but we're not uncomfortable enough yet. And I don't understand it. I mean,
I feel like a frog in the pot of water.
exactly. And that's
It's
exactly.
hot. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that's exactly what's happening, and it's because of like Bannon said, lack with buckshot, so you can't focus on one space. You got everybody's concerns being divided out. Um, so there's no focus that can. Other, nobody's nobody's.
I think what's happening is the interference from the truck passing was making you break up a little bit.
Okay.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that what's happening is that we're comfortable enough and not uncomfortable enough to what I started to say was so Bannon's buckshot approach is that that's divided our attention into several sections of people, sections of the populace, so that we're not focused in on one thing. A general strike would have us focused in, but I will return to the fact that that most of us that would affect change are not uncomfortable enough. It hasn't affected me yet, is the mentality.
Yep, it hasn't affected me yet much at all, and I will own that. But I am actively attempting to wake my fellow human beings up through hearings, having guests like you on to talk about these things. And it's not just talk, because we can actually take actions. I'm very consciously aware, for instance, of exactly how I'm spending my money and where it's going, of my disposable income. I had a guest on not long back who wrote a book about what was it called? The something and joy of being old. And she was saying, we're powerless. We've got to pay our electric bills. Okay, you got to pay your electric bills. You've got to pay this. You got to pay that. There are choices you can make surrounding those things.
Correct.
In terms of where you set your thermostat. You may remember, I remember vividly the 1970s during the energy crisis.
Yep.
When we all turned our thermostats down.
And I was
in the winter.
five.
We had gas rationing basically by your license plate in the 70s.
Right.
And OPEC tried to get us by we've really worked hard to make ourselves energy independent. And, the impact on the climate that we're all now well aware of, or we're in denial about. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just know how it seems to me right now. I'm willing to accept new information. I think we all need that kind of openness. So when I say, why are you here? I'm asking everybody listening, why are you here on Earth? What's your purpose in life? Well, most of us are here because your parents got together, right? And you don't like to think about it, but that's what happened. Hello. And once you're there, though, you're thrown into the world. And you got to figure it out. And you're thrown into civilization, and we're inculcated with all these cultural things.
Right.
My parents were,
no direction manual.
Right. And the thing is about the political situation when I was born in 1963, there was not very many more months until JFK was assassinated.
Right.
And a total spin happened. Then there was this law in 1964, Civil Rights Act. There's one of my fellow Williamsburgers who's just a few years older than me, Bruce Hornsby, wrote about it in his song, The Way It Is. Are you familiar with that one? Sorry, I don't hear you.
Oh, I agree. Yes.
And it says that was passed a law in 1964 to give those who ain't got a little more. It only goes so far. And then he's talking about growing up in Williamsburg, Virginia. In fact, he still lives there.
Oh,
he's really sweet. He's a down-home guy. And so many great people that I know have come up out of this kind of milieu. And we lived it, and we were conscious of it. when segregation happened in our neighborhood. And, we had to wake up to the fact that, hey, this wasn't right. What our parents were used to. In fact, Williamsburg, up until, think about the year I was born, or maybe a little earlier, had a monument to the KKK
Right.
on the Shore Park on Boundary Street.
Wow.
I think they had a Confederate flag flying. I'm not sure of that. I'll have to double check that. But they took it down in about the time that the Civil Rights Act was passed. And of course, Monument Avenue in Richmond was completely devoid of its monuments to the Confederate, to the Confederacy. Just in this Black Lives Matters period when George Floyd was murdered. If I go down here to the National Museum of African Art, there's a thing down in the basement level called Five Murmurations that includes the audio of George Floyd dying.
Oh my God.
It's a pretty interesting piece of juxtaposition of a whole bunch of videos and audio snippets, but that's part of it. And it's I go down there and sit and meditate on that on occasion. I'm not saying that he walked on water, but he didn't deserve what he got.
Exactly.
Our legal forces should not be able to, mete out that kind of, quote, justice, unquote. What was weird was there was Black Lives Matters Plaza in front of the White House on 16th Street when we were having all those protests in 2020
Right.
in the summer. And they painted Black Lives Matters on the street. As soon as Trump was back into office, without, I think, even being asked, the DC government covered it over.
Wow.
It's like, why?
Yeah.
What was that about? What does that mean? And it didn't even get questioned that I've seen. I'm sure somebody did, but I didn't hear it,
Right.
We have some wonderful resources around us here, by the way. I'm walking through this garden, this serpentine path. And in the spring, this is amazing. And you can get a huge education on the names of all these different plant and flower species that are around. It's not much to look at in the winter as much as it is in the spring, but it'll be back.
Nice.
And that's what your tax dollars help with. I like to think that's where my tax dollars that I do not manage to divert end up going.
Right.
I do try to do what I can to divert my tax dollars, and people can do that. That's an action you can take. Think about the charities that you support, like we were talking about Rainmakers and Knuckleheads.
Exactly.
Bringing it back around. And the Healers, by the way, was part of the Blue Star Network, is what they were supporting, which got musical instruments into the hands of kids with chronic illnesses.
Wow.
So I think it's a really huge gift. I'm a big supporter of another thing called the Washington Tattoo that tries to put drums in the hands of veterans suffering PTSD. Because even though our armed forces are only like 2% of our population, what they are put through to do the things that they're doing, which to my mind, an awful lot of our activities are not necessarily in the national interest, but they signed up, so they have to do them.
Right.
And for a while I was working on a contract with US MEPCOM, which is the Military Entrance Processing Command that takes care of all the enlisted, wherever they might be, and the processing of them as they come in. And you realize that an awful lot of these kids have to do that, economically speaking, because they have no other options.
Right. It is. So, where I'm from, Farmington, Missouri, there in
Yeah. Sorry, there's some background noise.
there's a huge recruitment, and back when I was in high school, I would say 70% of the kids that were in high school went because there were no other options.
Yeah. Yep. And my father said it was the greatest welfare program on the planet. Back in the 70s, he was saying that.
Wow.
And I didn't go in myself. I thought about it, but my generation went in, and most of them were in Gulf War I. One of them was Bruce Hornsby's brother-in-law, actually, was flying FA-18s off of the Midway, which was commissioned in 1945. So in 1991, when Gulf War I came around, you can imagine the shape it was in.
Yeah.
Another one was flying Harriers for the Marines, trucking bombs in to take out the Republican Guard. And I remember reading an interview with him about the time in the Virginia Gazette, newspaper that's been around in many guises, but since the Republic was founded, and before, for that matter, during the colonial period. But anyway, the Virginia Gazette, the Williamsburg newspaper, was a shadow of itself. He was interviewing David, and he was talking about, land back at base and realized, I probably just ended the lives of a lot of people today. Like, wow, what a thing to carry.
I know. I can't imagine carrying that.
And I do. Yeah, and I think there's a certain degree of pride in that too, because he did serve and he wanted to serve, and that was what he was called upon to do. I don't think he realized that he'd be going to war, but he took that risk, and it meant a lot to him to do it. Right. My hat's off to him in a lot of ways, and I don't really begrudge that so much as I look at my own support for that, because I thought it was a nice, clean war in a lot of ways until the highway of death. And then that's what caused us to pull back and not completely replace the leadership as we did in 2003, plus on the pretext that there were weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
There was a movie a while back, actually, my wife and I were watching it. I know I'm digressing a little bit, bouncing from the thing, but it was called War Incorporated. Did you ever see it? 2008?
No, I did not.
Did you ever hear about it?
I did hear about it. I just I hadn't gotten to it yet.
Okay, it's on Amazon Prime, and I'm going to recommend that everybody watch it because it stars John Cusack, and if you saw Grosse Point Blank, which was very successful,
right,
it's sort of a successor to that. He isn't playing Martin Blank; he's playing a character named Brand Hauser, and Dick Cheney is not playing a hitman; he's playing, or not Dick Cheney, Dan Aykroyd is playing instead the vice president, Dick Cheney, basically.
Yeah.
They don't name him that. They just say, Mr. Vice President. He says, I haven't been vice president in so many years, but he's heading a company called Tamerlane, think Halliburton. Right. And the entire war effort has been outsourced. And the area called the Emerald City is where a trade show is being put on as a cover for Cusack's character assassinating the head of a gas company that's getting in the way of U.S. interests. So you see the kind of movie it is. And it was set in that area where they're putting it on. It's called the Emerald City. Think Green Zone.
Right.
It's so perfectly on point in so many ways. And I've looked at the reviews, and it got panned by the critics. They said it was smug, too on point, and they hit that point over and over and over again. It's true, they did. Hilary Duff is in it as a little Middle Eastern pop star. She does a tune called I Want to Blow You Up. So, my wife and I loved it. But it cost about $10 million to film in Bulgaria, is where they shot it. And it got about $500,000 in box office. It apparently played in 30 theaters, cinemas.
Wow.
That tells you something about suppression.
It does. It does. It's interesting because they've always said, Hollywood's so liberal, and it's not. It is as suppressed as anywhere.
It's a very odd film in a lot of ways. I love it. Marisa Tomei plays a leftist journalist that is the love interest for John Cusack. And she gets abducted. She's going to be decapitated by a bunch of video makers who basically are more interested in their art.
Nice.
They're not idealistic at all. As he talks about how she's railed against this occupation in every major journal in the world, they say, I'm sorry, but I think you mistook me for somebody who gives a shit. Yeah, it's just a gig for us, babe. Another one says. So I'm spoiling the film. But it's pretty horrific in a lot of ways. And yet, if we see it, I think we laugh. We think, yeah, that's the way it is, but we're powerless to stop it. Did you ever see the film called In the Loop?
Did not.
That's about the run up to the Iraqi war from the British perspective. It's a film made on a comedy series that was going on, dark comedy, over in, let's go. I just passed them. National Guard over there. I don't know if you can see them. They're passing Jefferson on patrol. I like to make sure people know that that's still happening. Nice people. Shame that one of them got shot and killed. And I hope the other guy is recovering, but horrible stuff happens here. What else do I want to say? Okay, In the Loop. In the Loop is about this situation where in the State Department over here and in number 10 Downing Street over there, a minister of the Interior for Great Britain ends up saying some stuff that causes him to be the guy they send as part of the delegation to the State Department in the run-up to a war. And the guy who played in The Sopranos, James Gandolfini, plays a general in it. And he's at a party, and he ends up upstairs with one of the State Department heads, not the secretary, but somebody else. And he does the calculations of what's needed to do the occupation on like a Fisher-Price toy calculator. So the irony is rich. And the actors you'll recognize from British comedies and, Jane Austen films and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I've had an assistant deputy secretary of Homeland Security watch that, his friend of mine, retired now up in Maine. And Chet said that's exactly how it is.
Oh,
Basically,
really?
a white paper written by an intern becomes the pretext for going to war.
Wow.
And he says, you've got to see this movie because it's exactly how it works.
Well, isn't that how we get bills through Congress? Is that the folks who are at or it's in their interest, they write those up and them off.
They write them up. Yeah.
They write them up, give them the cash, and let's make this a law.
And we don't pay enough attention, A lot of us, we abrogated our citizens' responsibility to be well informed. And you can be informed. That's the thing. We have the right to know now in spades. You didn't have that so much before the internet. You ever seen Mark Maron, the stand-up comic?
Yes. Funny.
He did a thing called the WTF podcast.
Yes.
Okay, he's winding that down now, I believe, if not hasn't already. But he's been doing it like 16 years. There's something he said along these lines that I've just lost. May come back later. But the bottom line is, we do these things to ourselves and we pretend that they're being done to us. And we don't take the responsibility. The right to know, that was it. He said back in the day, you were thinking about your childhood at the office one day and you said, oh yeah, there was this guy who made all this stuff out of peanuts. And you may know who I'm talking about already. But he said, but you couldn't remember what it was. So back then you couldn't just go on the internet and Google it.
Right.
You had to call a friend up. And if he wasn't there, you had to leave a message on an answering machine that had a tape. And then they'd have to go to the library and look it up for you and then get back to you. He does it in such a way that's very funny. I won't spoil it.
Yeah.
But that was the truth. And now we have all this information at our fingertips, and it boils my blood that we pretend we listen to hearsay, and we don't check.
It's easier.
It's laziness. I think you're right.
It's the least resistance. The least resistant path is the way I look at it. Yeah, and the thing is now because we've muddied the water with disinformation, now it's not just we go to look it up. Now we have to look it up 3 or 4 sources in order to verify it.
Yep. 3 or 4 sources. And that's important because going back to primary documentation, what I'm doing here while I walk along I'm sucking up primary documentation of who, what, when, and where of what our current thinking is, all which is going to be stored in various places. And here you got some folks coming out of the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of American History.
One of my favorite places. Right.
Yeah, upstairs they have Stanley, and Stanley is a Volkswagen Touareg. You know why they have it?
No.
Stanford's robotics team won the DARPA challenge in 2006 with it.
Oh, wow.
And a friend of mine led that team. He was at the University of Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon University, actually. He was heading up the robotics lab there before he went to Stanford. And he's now working on Kitty Hawk, I think. I got to check in with him soon. I sent a message recently, see if he would reflect back. But when he won, I wrote him an email and he wrote right back. I was working at Customs and Border Protection as a contractor at the time. And he was, of course, founding Udacity at the time, which is a large, massive online course vendor. You can go to Udacity and take courses in just about anything.
Yeah.
Macro degrees. He and I and his wife at the time, I think he's divorced her since, or something happened. I don't know. I've been out of touch with Petra for a bit. But she was in one of my classes in the German department at the University of Pittsburgh because she was taking her doctorate in English there at the time. And we'd be sitting at Hemingway's Cafe on Forbes Avenue talking about how our education system, the university system, wasn't serving people. It needed to change. When he got out to Stanford, he put his statistics course online, and then he was at a Lady Gaga concert, and he realized that he had 10 times as many people in his course as were at that concert. So it was 65,000.
Wow.
And there were 147 of his top students were not at Stanford. They were in India or China or wherever, but they had access to his statistics course. And of course, statistics is very much a big part of robotics.
Right.
So anyhow, yeah, Stanley's in there. And it's kind of funny to be that close to somebody. He's not that much older than I am. And you know why he did it? They went into robotics thing, self-driving cars, because Waymo is also an after effect of that, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Came out of the Hugo X, which is headed up by another guy I knew from the parties at Sebastian's house, Astro Teller. He's the captain of the moonshot factory, Google X, it's called, which means like Software X. It's not like Elon Musk's X. That's something else. Anyhow, what the hell was I saying? I forgot. But anyway, I know these people, and they're not that much older than I am. And why Sebastian did it? Why Waymo? There's a friend of Sebastian's was killed in Germany. That's where he's from. When he was in high school. And he decided, as he was studying then, to focus his study on ensuring that he saved 1 million lives by the time he was X old. I'm not sure exactly what his deadline was there. That was what drove him and what drives him to this day. Kitty Hawk is working on flying cars.
Oh, wow.
Robotic flying cars. So if you're wondering what your flying car is after watching the Jetsons as a kid, he's working on it. He's actually doing it. And that brings us back to a point of, if you don't like the world you see around you, Sebastian's nothing special. Well, I mean, he's a smart guy, right? But he's nothing that special. But he's doing it. He'd made the decision, dedicated himself to the cause, and took action to do things that are transforming the world. And mind you, Astro Teller's doing the same thing at Google X. That's where they do the kind of moonshot stuff. So they try to fail fast.
Right.
And there's actually, you can take a certificate from him now through Masterclass, which I bought. So got to go back and finish my work on that. Now that I'm done walking around the mall, getting some exercise, trying to keep moving,
Exactly.
I'm not going to be good to anybody if I'm in a hospital because I haven't taken good care of myself. That brings me to another point, another subject about taking care of ourselves, because our society is not all that healthy. We have a sick care system, And we've also made choices that have allowed that to happen. Nixon administration passed the HMO Act,
Right.
allowed insurance companies to make profit. Before that, they couldn't legally.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
And that's why you have a situation like you have now, where there's your claims that you might have will get denied.
Right. Because in the interest of the stockholders.
Right. Right. Got to make that profit.
So I'm going to go back to your statement earlier about your friend, and I had this thought. It's like you were talking about, he had this idea and he moved it and he took action to it.
Yeah.
Interesting thing, because that's what moves a wishful thinker to a dreamer to an expediter to an entrepreneur. Those are the things
Yep, that's a fact.
that path is the path only appears when the.
So I lost you there. I think too much traffic. I'm moving away.
I said that path only appears because action has been taken.
That's happened, and then I lost the word.
Oh, the path
in the past.
The path appears.
Path. Got it.
The path appears when the action is taken. It doesn't appear before, it appears after the action.
Yeah, it's kind of like how things render as they're needed.
Correct.
Kind of like in the simulation. What's it meant to be? The brush talking about it actually has an effect of speech acts. And if somebody can hear this and maybe be inspired to say, hey, these guys are right. I could be doing something different and make a different choice. Everything I've done in my life has led to me standing here now, right? And I'm responsible for that.
Yeah.
Along with the effects of other people. I'm not discounting that. I've had a lot of help. And being able to recognize that. One of the things I did when I was in Pittsburgh is I got an apartment on Neville Street in the center, close to it. And right down the way, Mr. Rogers maintained an apartment.
Red Rogers?
And the idea is it's Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, right? Literally, that I was in. And the idea is, we can affect a lot of things if we're willing to, accept others just the way they are, ask for help, do these simple things, these simple principles that he used to lay down for the kids when we were growing up. When I die, my estate, I don't have kids of my own, will go to the Mr. Rogers Foundation, Fred Rogers Foundation, I think it's called, or Fred Rogers Institute, or whatever, and keep it going,
Yeah.
My wife and I tried to think of where we could put our good and it'll do the most, and that was what we picked, that and seva, which is seva is the Sanskrit word for service. And have you heard of it before?
I had not.
seva.org. It restores sight to the needlessly blind. And largely in the third world, but they also, have other projects, vision related, because of course, if you're blind in the third world, it's a tremendous burden to your community. And if you don't have to be blind, if there's a cataract operation to take care of it, that's like $50 or less.
Wow.
I think it's less now. And they just can't get $50 to do it. They're going to be, a mouth that has no hands, is I think how they phrase it. That they can't actually do much for the society, but they're going to be continuing to eat. And therefore, the rest of the community have to support them. And I can't imagine getting that gift back, the gift to be able to see, to no longer necessarily have to be a burden. And that's a huge gift, I think. And it came about because we eradicated smallpox in the 1970s. Do you remember that?
I do.
Larry Brilliant was one of the doctors with the UN who helped do that. Yeah, really, that's his name, Larry Brilliant. You might have seen him during the pandemic on CNN talking it up, because he also was a consultant to, what was it called? It wasn't pandemic, but it was something like that. Contagion. television movie about something like COVID breaking out.
Yep.
So he had been an epidemiologist who could consult on that. He's also the best friend of Wavy Gravy, the counterculture clown, who was Hugh Romney back in the day. So Steve Jobs, when they eradicated smallpox, got Larry Brilliant, Wavy, Ram Dass, a bunch of other people together, some UN diplomats as well, and said, what are we going to tackle next? And that's what they picked. SAVA come out of that. That was like 1979. And Wavy got on a plane to fly back to California, where he's based. And the Grateful Dead happened to be on the plane. And he said, and they didn't have parachutes. So he hooked them up to do a benefit concert. So that was like one of the first ones in 1979 was a benefit concert. And Bill Graham came to Wavy and said, why didn't you tell me this was a benefit concert? So Bill Graham ended up giving Wavy a check for $10,000, and Wavy was shocked, and he said, why are you doing this, Bill? And because they had to get helicopters, right, to get doctors out to where these people are.
Right.
Anyway, so Bill just said, because you did not hit on me, my friend. That's a great Wavy story. There's a lot of great Wavy stories, by the way. Everybody should go out and look up Wavy Gravy and get behind some of the stuff he's into, I think. That's one thing. Needless blindness. We can help the world. We can change the world. You know, there's a tune by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. You might know it. It's called Chicago.
Uh-huh.
And its refrain is, we can change the world, rearrange the world.
Right.
I don't know if you know it. And it basically starts out, well, your brother's bound and gagged and they've tied him to a chair. Won't you please come to Chicago just to sing? That was Wavy calling Graham Nash. Oh, wow. And then Graham writes a song to try, because he's got, I forget whether he got Crosby. I think he had Crosby already. But he was trying to reach Stills and Young to help him join in. So that's why I wrote the song. Because there's a line in it, will you please come to Chicago or else join the other side? Heavy shaming there, Graham. Yeah. I think they did. I think they did join in. And we can change the world. It's a refrain. And he's not wrong. The thing is, really, we are changing the world. Whether we're changing it for the better or not, that's the question.
Right.
And what is better? Choose to judge. I think I'm doing the right things, but there's always the law of unintended consequences. You know, one of those people who gets their sight restored might actually end up being the dictator of Nepal. I don't know.
That's true, but that's out of our hands. Those are choices.
Yeah. Well, we hope. We never can tell, but you're doing it for the right reasons. You're inspired by the idea that we can change the world. We can make a difference in another person's life. That's fundamental. But we have to be willing, we have to be aware that it's possible. I think a lot of people walk around not conscious of it at all. I can't swear to that. I can't get in inside anybody else's head. But, I mean, G.I. Gurdjieff would tell you, we're all like zombies. He died in 1949, but his work, to my mind, is really important. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, it goes back to what we were talking about, the non-player characters. Am I choosing today to be a non-player character, or am I going to act and make a change, no matter how small that is? Right? I'm going to change somebody's life in a small way. I'm going to improve it in some way.
Yeah, I hope we've reached somebody else. How many do we have? 20? That means 18 other people at least have checked in and saw we were talking to each other. Yeah, if they didn't leave before you got on.
Right.
So maybe some of them will be sparked to do something really dramatic and positive, or maybe just a little thing, because it doesn't have to be huge. I think Mahatma Gandhi said that, right? You do maybe seem really insignificant, but it's incredibly important that you do it because you are unique on the planet. You occupy a unique space. Nobody else can occupy the space you're occupying.
Correct. Nobody can move. When I was a kid, my grandfather would always say, "Nobody can move the chess piece."
Nobody can what?
No one can move that chess piece of it.
Yeah, no one can move that chess piece but you, right?
He was teaching me how to play chess, and I'm like, well, which move would you make? And he goes, that doesn't matter. The chess piece is only you can make that move. And
Right.
it was one of those small little lessons that I took with me the whole way.
Right. Right. You know what mine was basically that there are simple rules for complex performance with high quality. You learn those simple things and you can then mash them up into more complex things that end up being high quality because you took the time and attention to mind the little things. And that's straight out of Fife and Drum,
Nice.
where I was raised up by John C. Moon, who was the youngest drum major in the history of the Scots Guards before coming to train us after retiring from the British Army. So you know he was no joke. He was part of the Guards Regiment. He held a warrant from Her Majesty as a drummer to the royal household. So that's my training, you know. And I think about that a lot. My wife and I are working right now with her situation as a human resources director. And some of her people are, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 63 almost. February 4th, I'll get there if I don't die.
I just turned 62 yesterday.
Got it. So we're about the same generation.
Yeah.
And the thing is, she's got a lot of 30-somethings working with her. And my God, they're sensitive.
Yeah.
And there's a guy who's in his 40s who's their CEO, and apparently he hasn't been as complimentary, I guess, or as believable in his compliments as he needs to be. And they're having a little rebellion. I'm like, WTF, man. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not even supposed to talk about that. So everybody edit that out. But my thing is, as I'm actually at my freedom right now, because I was working for a company, I had no idea. I never saw this coming, but I had a similar situation. A younger man who I had rehired, actually. He had quit when they had his feet held by the fire by a guy that I had removed when I became the program manager because he was actually not so great at managing. And I hired this guy back who had quit. And I thought he was doing a fine job. I didn't know it, but basically he found me to be overbearing, disrespectful. There was another word. I try to remember it because I don't want to be those things. And I don't think I was intentionally those things. But you know what? Communication is not the message intended. It's the message perceived.
Exactly.
And his perception was his reality. And I've got to respect that at some level. And I really looked at it like a God shot, like, this is a gift. I'm getting set free without any notice at all, not even seeing it coming. So, you know, but I think a lot of it had to do with being from a different generation where everybody gets a medal for participation. I don't know. That's my projection onto the situation. I could be wrong. No, it's terrible. Go ahead.
When I was managing groups, I always talked about there were 4 people in this conversation. There's me, and there's me and who I think I am, and there's me who you think I am, and there's you who I think you are, and there's you who you know who you. So there's 4 people.
Yep. When 2 people meet, 6 people meet. I'm going to have to wrap it there. I'm at 1% power, and I want to make sure I get this recorded. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And, you know, I think we covered a lot of good ground. Hope everybody else enjoyed it. Give us your comments. Give us your feedback. And be a witness. Be a witness. Ending.